The first sign that my marriage had become a lie arrived 72 hours after I said I do. Most men spend their honeymoon collecting memories. I spent mine collecting evidence. My name is Jack Thompson. I was 36 years old, the founder of a commercial logistics software company based outside Dallas, Texas. For 8 years, I built systems that tracked cargo worth millions of dollars across the country. My career revolved around patterns, anomalies, and risk assessment. Those instincts made me successful in business. They also saved me from becoming the biggest fool in my own marriage. Emily and I looked perfect from the outside. She was beautiful, intelligent, charismatic, the kind of woman who could walk into a room and make everyone feel like they had known her for years. We met at a charity event, dated for 3 years, got engaged 12 months later, and eventually stood before our families promising forever. Looking back now, I realize forever was the first thing she never intended to deliver. Our honeymoon started in Maui. Oceanfront suite, 5-star resort, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. The type of trip people post online and caption with words like blessed or soulmate. The first day felt normal. The second day felt slightly off. By the third day, my instincts started pulling at threads I couldn't ignore. Emily developed a new attachment to her phone. She carried it everywhere. Breakfast, poolside, elevator rides, even quick walks across the resort. Whenever a notification appeared, her expression shifted for half a second before she locked it back behind a smile. Most people miss those micro-expressions. I spent my career studying them during negotiations. They jump out once you know where to look. I began tracking details mentally. Timestamps, excuses, movements, patterns. Emily disappeared for 37 minutes during a couple's excursion. She blamed a spa appointment mix-up. Later that evening, she stepped onto the balcony for a phone call and returned with a rehearsed explanation before I even asked a question. People explain themselves early when they're preparing for scrutiny. The next morning, I noticed something even stranger. A transfer alert appeared on our joint credit card account. $782 charged to a private luxury charter service. I hadn't booked it. Emily hadn't mentioned it. When I casually asked about vacation expenses, she answered too quickly. The response landed before the question finished. Another red flag. That night, after she fell asleep, I opened our banking portal. Years of managing business accounts had trained me to audit transactions efficiently. Within 20 minutes, I discovered 3 purchases routed through a secondary travel account Emily rarely used. Each transaction connected to locations she claimed she never visited during the trip. My pulse slowed. That always happens when a problem becomes real. Emotion exits. Analysis enters. I exported statements. Archived confirmations. Created a secure folder. By midnight, I had enough concerns to justify deeper verification. By 1 in the morning, I found something much worse. An airline reservation attached to a name I recognized. Mark Reynolds, Emily's former boyfriend. The same Mark she told me she hadn't spoken to in years. The same Mark whose flight landed on Maui less than 24 hours after ours. I stared at the reservation number for several seconds. Then I opened another document linked to the booking. What I saw next changed the balance of power completely. The document attached to the reservation was a premium villa booking located 12 miles from our resort. 2 guests, 3 nights. Check-in scheduled for the exact period when Emily claimed she had reserved back-to-back wellness treatments and private excursions. Most people would have confronted their spouse right there. Anger pushes people toward immediate action. My career trained me to move differently. I followed data before emotion. I downloaded the booking confirmation, archived the payment trail, and cross-referenced the timestamps against our shared calendar. Every detail aligned too perfectly to ignore. Then I noticed something that tightened the knot in my stomach. The villa reservation used Emily's secondary email address. She created that account 2 years earlier for freelance consulting projects. I knew about it because I helped set up the security protocols myself. The account shared recovery credentials with one of our older financial planning portals. That connection opened another door. Within minutes, I accessed a trail of receipts stretching back several months. Airline upgrades, restaurant reservations, boutique hotel deposits, small transactions by themselves, a pattern when viewed together. The dates caught my attention first. Many occurred during business conferences, networking events, and girls' weekends Emily described in great detail. She had always been an excellent storyteller. The receipts told a different story. I exported everything into a spreadsheet and began mapping activity. My screen filled with timelines, locations, merchant codes, and transaction clusters. Around 3 in the morning, a shape emerged from the noise. Mark Reynolds appeared repeatedly, sometimes directly, sometimes through connected reservations, sometimes through overlapping travel schedules. Every road seemed to lead back to him. I leaned back and stared at the monitor. The betrayal hurt. The planning impressed me. That realization disturbed me more than the affair itself. Affairs create chaos. This looked organized, structured, budgeted. Emily had built a parallel reality with the discipline of a project manager. Then I found the first real mistake. A wire transfer for $4,000 moved from an account I recognized. Years earlier, before our wedding, Emily asked me to review a small investment account she inherited from her grandmother. The account remained active. The transfer destination carried the name of a limited liability company registered in Nevada. Curious, I searched public records. 30 seconds later, a business filing appeared. The registered manager listed on the document was Mark Reynolds. I felt my pulse slow again. Every major crisis in my life begins with that sensation. Clarity replacing confusion. The affair suddenly looked larger than two people sneaking around behind my back. Money connected them. Planning connected them. Future intentions connected them. I opened another record search. Then another. Property databases. Corporate registrations. Civil filings. By sunrise, I uncovered 6 months of financial overlap between Emily and Mark. Yet one discovery eclipsed everything else. Buried inside a recent filing sat a purchase agreement for a condominium in Scottsdale, Arizona. The ownership structure listed 2 future occupants. Mark Reynolds, Emily Thompson. The closing date fell exactly 48 days after our honeymoon ended. Most men would have closed the laptop and confronted their wife the second they saw their name attached to another man's future. I stared at the purchase agreement for almost 5 minutes. Then I opened a new folder and labeled it evidence. Emotion creates mistakes. Documentation creates leverage. That became my rule from that moment forward. Emily still slept a few feet away, completely unaware that her entire secret life had started collapsing under its own paperwork. I reviewed the condominium filing again. The ownership structure revealed more than a future address. It revealed intent. People planning an affair think about weekends. People planning an escape think about assets, residency, banking, and timelines. This document belonged to the second category. I pulled public records on Mark Reynolds. The picture sharpened quickly. Mark worked as a regional sales director for a medical supply company. Solid income. Strong credit. Recently approved mortgage applications. Then I found a business loan application submitted 3 months earlier. The listed emergency contact caught my attention immediately. Emily Thompson, my wife. I exported the record and added it to the folder. By sunrise, the folder contained 27 documents. By breakfast, it contained 34. Emily walked into the restaurant wearing the same smile that had convinced me to marry her. She reached for my hand across the table and asked whether I slept well. The question almost made me laugh. Instead, I smiled and told her I slept great. Her shoulders relaxed. That tiny reaction taught me something important. She feared discovery. Fear creates patterns. Patterns create opportunities. Throughout the day, I watched her more carefully. Every glance toward her phone, every sudden text, every unexplained absence. My perspective had changed. A week earlier, I saw a wife enjoying a honeymoon. Now I saw a project manager coordinating a hidden operation. The details appeared everywhere. Around noon, she excused herself for what she described as a spa consultation. 20 minutes later, I tracked a rideshare charge through our joint card account. The destination matched the area where the private villa sat. She had grown comfortable. Comfortable people stopped checking for leaks. While she disappeared, I called an attorney in Dallas. Years earlier, he helped structure portions of my company during an acquisition negotiation. I trusted him because he valued evidence over drama. I described the situation carefully. He listened without interruption. Then he asked a question that changed everything. Jack, before this marriage, did you ever update your asset protection structures? I told him yes. Several years before meeting Emily, I placed a significant percentage of my company ownership into a trust as part of a long-term succession plan. Silence followed. Then he chuckled softly. Good, he said. Very good. For the first time since finding Mark's name, I felt something close to control returning. The conversation lasted 43 minutes. When it ended, I had a checklist, a strategy, and a growing realization that Emily's plan might be built on assumptions she never bothered to verify. That evening she returned from her mysterious appointment carrying a level of confidence I had not seen before. During dinner, she casually mentioned Arizona. Just one sentence. Just one state. Then she changed the subject. Most people would have missed it. I heard a countdown hidden inside those two words. Later that night, after she fell asleep, her phone lit up on the nightstand. A message preview appeared across the screen. I only saw 8 words before the notification disappeared. 8 words were enough. The transfer clears tomorrow. Then we are ready. The message stayed in my head for the rest of the night. The transfer clears tomorrow. Then we are ready. Ready for what? Most people would assume the answer pointed toward a romantic future. I saw something different. Money leaves fingerprints. Every transfer, every account, every signature creates a trail. If Emily and Mark were moving funds, I wanted to know where those funds originated and where they intended to land. The next morning, I started with the simplest question. How much of my money had entered their plans? While Emily prepared for another mysterious appointment, I logged into every financial platform connected to our household. Retirement accounts, joint savings, investment portfolios, credit facilities, business reimbursements. I built a complete ledger and compared 6 months of activity against 3 years of historical patterns. The discrepancies emerged quickly. Small withdrawals, recurring transfers, round numbers hidden among ordinary expenses. Someone had deliberately kept each transaction below thresholds that typically attract attention. That strategy impressed me. It also exposed intent. Accidental spending creates randomness. Coordinated movement creates structure. By noon, I had identified nearly $60,000 redirected through a chain of accounts connected to Emily. Then I discovered the real objective. One account served as a staging area. Funds entered. Funds exited. The balance rarely remained above a few $1,000s. I traced the outgoing transfers to a private investment group registered in Arizona. The same state she casually mentioned during dinner. The same state where the condominium waited. Every road kept leading toward the same destination. Around 2 o'clock, my attorney returned my call. He had reviewed several documents I forwarded earlier. His tone carried a level of interest that immediately grabbed my attention. "Jack, I found something useful," he said. Useful was his favorite word when discussing leverage. He explained that several assets Emily appeared to count on during a future divorce existed outside the marital estate, due to trust structures established years before our relationship began. She likely saw company valuations. She likely saw public records. She likely built assumptions around numbers she never fully understood. Assumptions create expensive mistakes. 4. The first time since the honeymoon began, I sensed the balance shifting. Emily thought she was executing a plan. Meanwhile, her plan rested on financial projections detached from reality. Later that afternoon, I received another unexpected gift. A notification from my business banking system flagged an attempted access request. The request originated from a device I did not recognize. Seconds later, another alert appeared. Someone had entered an outdated password tied to one of my corporate holding accounts. My stomach tightened. Very few people knew those accounts existed. Even fewer knew enough to search for them. I downloaded the security logs immediately. The location data pointed toward a private network operating less than 5 miles from our resort. Then I noticed the timestamp. The attempt occurred during the exact period Emily claimed she was attending a wellness consultation. I saved the records and expanded the evidence folder again. 47 documents had become 53. 53 had become 60. That evening, Emily returned carrying an energy I had never seen before. Confidence radiated from her. Victory almost seemed close enough for her to touch. During dinner, she raised a glass and smiled across the table. Then she delivered a sentence that revealed far more than she intended. "Jack," she said softly, "have you ever wondered how different your life could be 6 weeks from now?" Emily's question hung in the air long after dinner ended. Have you ever wondered how different your life could be 6 weeks from now? Most husbands would hear curiosity. I heard forecasting. People reveal their plans when they believe victory sits within reach. That night, I stopped looking at the affair as an emotional betrayal and started treating it like a hostile acquisition attempt. Every successful takeover follows the same formula. Gather information. Secure assets. Control the narrative. Isolate the target. The more evidence I collected, the more I realized Emily and Mark had followed that exact playbook. Back in the suite, I opened my laptop and reviewed the security logs again. The attempted access to my business accounts bothered me more than anything else. Affairs end. Financial sabotage creates permanent damage. I traced the login attempts through several layers of authentication records and discovered something unexpected. The activity did not originate from Mark. It originated from a financial consulting firm based in Scottsdale, the same city where the condominium waited, the same city connected to the investment group receiving transferred funds. Suddenly, a larger picture emerged. Emily and Mark were not simply planning a future together. They were building infrastructure around that future. Accounts, advisors, property, corporate entities. The level of preparation stunned me. Then my attorney sent another email. Attached were preliminary findings from a private investigator he occasionally used during complex divorce disputes. I opened the report immediately. Mark Reynolds carried far more baggage than Emily realized. 2 previous engagements. 1 civil lawsuit involving misrepresentation of assets. Multiple unpaid judgments negotiated down through settlements. On paper, he projected success. Under scrutiny, he resembled a man constantly running ahead of financial consequences. I read every page twice, then 3 times. For the first time since discovering the affair, I felt genuine sympathy for Emily. She believed she had selected an upgrade. Instead, she had attached herself to a liability disguised as an opportunity. The irony almost made me smile. The next morning brought another breakthrough. While reviewing transaction histories, I found a transfer scheduled to execute within 48 hours. The amount exceeded $120,000. The source account belonged to Emily. The destination account belonged to the Arizona Investment Group. That raised an immediate question. Emily never possessed that kind of liquidity on her own. I dug deeper. The answer appeared inside a loan application package filed 6 weeks earlier. My signature sat on one of the supporting documents. At first glance, everything looked legitimate. Then I examined the digital authentication record. The signature had been copied from a prior business filing and inserted into the application. Someone had repurposed my authorization to strengthen her financial profile. My chest tightened. That single discovery changed the entire situation. Affairs create personal consequences. Fraud creates legal consequences. I forwarded every document to my attorney within minutes. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. His voice carried a level of urgency I had never heard before. "Jack," he said, "do not confront anyone. From this moment forward, preserve every record. Because if these documents hold up under examination, Emily and Mark have a problem much bigger than a failed marriage." Then he paused. A new email had just reached his inbox. The sender's name made both of us go silent. Mark Reynolds, ex-fiancé. The name of the sender lingered on my screen longer than any message I had seen that week. Mark Reynolds, ex-fiancé. The words triggered a chain reaction in my mind. She had access to information only someone close to Mark would possess. That meant multiple networks, overlapping communications, hidden addresses, financial backups. My instinct switched into full investigative mode. I opened the private investigator's report again and cross-referenced every date, transaction, and communication with the patterns I had compiled over the past week. The data revealed coordination on a scale I had not anticipated. Transfers aligned precisely with lodging reservations, villa bookings, and even activity on Emily's secondary email accounts. The ex-fiancé mentioned assets I had not known existed, offshore holdings, and a hidden trust connected to Mark Reynolds' family estate. I created a master spreadsheet, linking locations, funds, property filings, and digital access logs. Each column, each entry, each timestamp told a story. Emily thought she controlled the situation. Mark believed he could manage the optics. I realized neither understood how tightly I could analyze and track every variable. Then a subtle pattern emerged. Messages exchanged with the ex-fiancé suggested an internal disagreement. Mark appeared to underestimate Emily's influence on my household finances, and Emily appeared to assume Mark had assets available that were contingent on legal approval. Their assumptions created gaps, opportunities one could exploit. I forwarded this to my attorney with detailed notes highlighting discrepancies and potential leverage points. He responded with a concise strategy: monitor, document, preserve every communication, and delay confrontation until the transfer and property structures became fully traceable. I spent the next hours mapping their assumptions against verifiable evidence. Every document, every payment, every email added clarity. Emily's confidence began to appear overextended in hindsight. Her casual mention of Arizona during dinner was a marker for a transaction. Her repeated absences aligned with transfer confirmations. Her reliance on Mark's representation for liquidity exposed vulnerability. By early evening, I had a dossier exceeding 70 entries, connecting financial flows, property intentions, and potential legal exposures. I set alerts for any additional account activity, added timestamped logs, and built a scenario map for potential outcomes. That night, Emily returned from a business consultation appearing composed, yet her steps betrayed anticipation. She poured a glass of wine, glanced at me with a smile, and made a passing remark about planning future trips to Scottsdale. I paused. Every piece of my research converged on that location. I made a note in the master file. The combination of observed behaviors, documented transactions, and legal insight presented a shift in the power dynamic. Emily and Mark assumed control. The reality now showed me who held leverage. As she retired to her room, I opened the dossier again and noticed a final message in the investigation logs. An email suggesting Mark had scheduled an appraisal for the Scottsdale condominium within the next 24 hours, an event neither Emily nor I could afford to ignore. The appraisal changed everything because appraisals create paper trails, and paper trails expose intentions. Early the next morning, I received an update from my attorney. The private investigator had verified the appointment. Mark planned to meet a lender, an appraiser, and a financial advisor within the same 48-hour window. That combination pointed toward refinancing, restructuring, or leveraging the property for additional capital. I opened my dossier and started connecting timelines. The scheduled appraisal matched the transfer Emily had authorized. The transfer matched the investment account. The investment account matched the condominium purchase. Every piece fit together like a machine built months before I ever stepped onto that honeymoon flight. Then another email arrived from Mark's former fiancée. Unlike her first message, this one included attachments: 23 files, contracts, screenshots, settlement documents, loan disclosures. I spent 3 hours reviewing every page. By the end, a disturbing pattern emerged. Mark had repeated the same strategy before. He cultivated trust, encouraged financial commitments, exaggerated future opportunities, and positioned himself close to assets he never personally created. His former fiancée lost nearly $80,000 after following one of his investment recommendations. She eventually settled a civil dispute rather than continue a lengthy legal fight. Emily thought she was partnering with a successful businessman. The records showed a man surviving through persuasion and appearances. I forwarded the entire package to my attorney. 15 minutes later, he called. His tone carried the calm confidence of someone watching a chessboard shift in real time. "Jack, they are moving faster than they should," he said. "People make mistakes when they believe the finish line is close." He was right. By that afternoon, another security alert reached my phone. Someone had attempted to access a legacy corporate database connected to one of my holding companies. Unlike previous attempts, this one generated a traceable credential request. The recovery email attached to the request belonged to Emily. I stared at the screen for several seconds. She had crossed from planning into active discovery. She was searching for information she assumed would support her future. What she found would disappoint her. Years before meeting Emily, I separated ownership structures across multiple entities. Public records suggested wealth. Actual control lived somewhere else entirely. My attorney had already confirmed that reality. Emily was chasing numbers that existed mostly on paper. That realization gave me something I had lacked since this nightmare began: patience. I stopped reacting emotionally. I started preparing strategically. That evening, Emily seemed unusually cheerful. She checked her phone repeatedly and smiled at messages she never shared. During dinner, she mentioned that some people enter your life for a season while others enter for a reason. The line sounded rehearsed, almost like a speech she planned to deliver later. I nodded and continued eating. Inside, I was measuring timelines. Hours later, after she fell asleep, another notification illuminated her phone screen. This time the preview remained visible long enough for me to read every word. The message came from Mark. The attorney reviewed everything. After next week, he will never see it coming. I reviewed every attachment Mark's ex-fiancée had sent and cross-referenced them with Emily's financial activity. Each detail painted a clearer picture. Transfers, property filings, email metadata, loan documents. All of it fit into a network Emily believed she controlled, but that actually exposed her reliance on external leverage. I logged each connection and created a timeline spanning 6 months. Each timestamp correlated with travel, payments, and property scheduling. I updated the master dossier to include every potential vulnerability in their assumptions. Then I began modeling outcomes. Emily assumed funds would be available when she executed transfers. Mark assumed the property would appraise at projected value. Both relied on my unawareness. Yet my preparation revealed the cracks. I scheduled an alert for every account Emily used, created a secure copy of all communications, and established cross-checks for asset movements. Around mid-afternoon, another anomaly surfaced. An email from the investment group included a conditional clause tied to property appraisal results. If the valuation fell below a certain threshold, the scheduled transfers would reverse automatically. Emily had not accounted for this clause. She believed the transfer was guaranteed. I printed the clause and added it to the dossier. Her confidence, once a signal of control, now marked exposure. I briefed my attorney on this discovery. He confirmed that exploiting the clause could give me leverage to halt transactions entirely if necessary. My strategy shifted. I would not confront or accuse yet. Instead, I would secure control by preserving all evidence and monitoring every movement. Each step Emily took, each message she sent, became an input in my decision matrix. I revisited the security logs and noted IP addresses, device fingerprints, and login times. Emily's pattern showed increasing urgency as she attempted to synchronize funds with property activities. By evening, I had assembled over 80 documents. Each one contributed to a narrative demonstrating her assumptions versus reality. Then I noticed a new email in the investment group system flagged with high importance. I opened it carefully. The message addressed scheduling conflicts and adjustments for the condominium appraisal, but it also referenced a recent communication from Mark Reynolds that neither Emily nor I had access to. The tone implied an unanticipated change in his plan. I froze. The window of opportunity Emily relied upon had shifted overnight. Timing, the most critical variable in any operation, now favored me. I forwarded the email to my attorney with my notes and waited. Emily returned to our suite later that night, smiling as if victory was imminent. She relaxed completely, unaware that the very variable she counted on had moved out of her favor. I poured a glass of water, sat back, and opened my dossier again. The transfer, the appraisal, and Mark's actions now intersected in ways that would define the next 24 hours. Then my phone buzzed. A notification previewed just a single word: reversal. The notification turned out to be the moment everything began collapsing for them. Reversal. One word. One outcome. One chain reaction. I opened the alert and read the accompanying notice from the investment group. The condominium appraisal had returned below the threshold required to activate the financing structure Mark and Emily depended on. The transfer failed automatically. The funds returned to their originating accounts. Months of planning unraveled because one assumption proved inaccurate. I sat quietly and reviewed the consequences. The investment account lost its momentum. The financing package lost its foundation. The property acquisition entered a holding pattern. Most importantly, pressure shifted directly onto Mark and Emily. Desperate people accelerate. Accelerating people make mistakes. Within hours, the evidence started arriving. Emily received multiple calls she tried to hide. Mark sent increasingly urgent messages. New account activity appeared across the systems I monitored. Requests, inquiries, amendments, extensions. Every action screamed the same thing. They were scrambling. My attorney reviewed the latest developments and prepared the final stage of our strategy. By the time our honeymoon ended, I possessed a complete record of financial transfers, access attempts, misleading disclosures, property documents, and communications. I had timelines, metadata, banking records, legal opinions. Everything remained organized, indexed, and preserved. Then came the moment Emily had spent months anticipating. 3 weeks after we returned home, she sat across from me and finally revealed her plan. She expected shock. She expected confusion. She expected negotiation. Instead, I handed her a folder. Her expression changed immediately. Confidence faded first, then certainty, then color. Inside the folder sat document after document, arranged in chronological order. Every transfer, every property filing, every communication trail, every inconsistency. She turned pages slowly at first, then faster. Then she stopped. The room fell silent. Across town, my attorney delivered a separate package addressing the legal and financial issues connected to the transactions. Mark received his own set of problems shortly afterward. Neither outcome required anger. Neither outcome required revenge in the way most people imagine revenge. Reality handled that part. Facts carried more force than emotion ever could. The following months revealed something I never expected. Freedom arrived quietly. No dramatic celebration. No victory speech. Just clarity. I focused on my company. I expanded operations. I spent time with people who valued honesty. Eventually, I stopped checking the old evidence folder altogether. The greatest victory came from moving forward rather than staring backward. Looking back now, the lesson feels simple. Betrayal thrives inside secrecy. Truth thrives inside documentation. When someone builds a future on deception, they eventually become trapped inside the structure they created themselves. I learned that during the most painful chapter of my life. I also learned something better. Character compounds the same way investments do. Small decisions become large outcomes over time. And if there is one thing this experience taught me, it is this. Never underestimate the power of patience, because while lies race toward the finish line, the truth keeps moving steadily forward. Years later, while reviewing old archived files scheduled for deletion, I noticed one final unread message buried inside the evidence folder. The sender's